AMP for officers. This is training for all officers and deputies in Ansteorra. These slides were produced by me. I'm going to be your speaker today. I am Hersakona Kolfina. I am currently serving as the emergency replacement for our Kingdom Web Minister, and I am one of the team of people that are responsible for bringing AMP into our lives. We do have a couple of other members of the AMP team here in the chat, and so that is exciting for me because if I can't answer your question, I'm going to make them do it. Yay! And before I move off the first slide, I did create a QR code to these slides, but I will also be posting them out after the fact. So if you want to scan it and have these slides on your own page to reference right now, you can pull out your phone and do that. If you're on your phone right now, sorry. But it's still going to be a good class. I did give an offering of this class recently at Kingdom Collegium, and the actual slides part of the content took about 35-40 minutes, and I expect similar today, but that may vary depending on how many questions folks have. Okay, so what are we covering? I'm going to give a brief overview of what is AMP, and then I'm going to talk about what you will use AMP for as an everyday user, so that's everybody, as a local officer, as a regional officer, and as a great officer. And then the rest of this will be time for Q&A and or time for us to transition over to watch the State of the Kingdom. Things that I won't cover today, because I think scope is important. I will not be going through detailed step-by-step instructions for like clicking through and navigating AMP. We do have those available in the AMP user guide. And so if you want kind of very granular step-by-steps, check out the user guide because I'm not going to go into that level of detail today. I will not be covering any content relating to using AMP as a seated nobility, crown, territorial coronet, barons and baronesses. There is training for that, and so we're not covering that today, but if I'll be releasing that this weekend, and I'll post it out along with this. I'm also not really going into the nitty-gritty details of back-end or developer information about AMP. We have a really awesome GitHub wiki that goes into all of that information, and so if you're the coding type or you're at all inspired to maybe get your hands in and help us out, you can check out that resource to learn more. All of the things that I'm going to be talking about today are going to be like normal actions of officers. All of the examples are going to be at a high level. Again, you can find step-by-step walkthroughs in the user guide. There's a button if you visit AMP at the bottom that says what is AMP, and that's where you can find user guides and other resources. If you've never used it, this is a tool that's going to take a little getting used to, but the features that we're rolling out should really help make managing our officers, rosters, answering the question of who's the current seneschal of X group much easier. And so the general ask is to approach this with patience and understanding, and inevitably there's going to be some bugs, and just want you to know that the AMP team is here. We want you to report bugs and problems, and we will make fixes as soon as possible. And so feedback is really, really important to this, especially because we're going to have a lot more users bumping through the system. And yeah, I see Martin is dropping some links in the chat, so feel free to keep an eye on that for other useful resources as I get going. Okay. So right out of the gate, we're going to have some questions, so I'm going to try to answer them. First one is, what is AMP? AMP stands for Ansteorra Management Portal. It's a web portal. It's a website, functionally, that Ansteorra now uses to manage our marshal authorizations, our Kingdom award recommendations. Hopefully you've used it. If not, make sure to submit award recs. Now, our Principality and Baronial award recommendations, we're adding support for that, which is exciting. It's the system that you can use to share your court preferences with the Crown. Things like, please notify me if you're going to call me into court, or if you call me into court, please make sure my wife is there, those kinds of things. And what I'm talking about today is the system that we're going to use for officer hiring and warrants. The important takeaway as an officer, if you're one today or you plan to be in the future, you, your upline, and your direct reports will now have to use AMP and start using it for officer hiring, officer release, and officer warranting. We're centralizing, and everybody's going to have to start using it. But it's a useful tool, and it'll make our lives easier. How do you get to AMP? You go to amp.ansteorra.org in any browser. You get a pretty standard login screen. So AMP, many folks that have done marshal activities in the kingdom might be familiar with our old marshal system. AMP, the first release of it, was an upgrade and an improvement to that marshal system. And so there's a lot of folks who already have an account in AMP because we were able to migrate the old system into the new one. But if you don't know your password, you can always request a reset, and then if you've never had an account in anything before, you can create a new account. Why do you need an account? 3 reasons. AMP is the system that the Crown and Grade officers will use to approve warrants. So if you're an officer at any level, you now need to have an account and familiarize yourself with the system. Second reason, AMP is what we use to manage combat authorizations. So again, if you want to get authorized for any type of combat or be an authorizing marshal in any kind of combat or be a marshal, you need an account in AMP because that's where we track these things. And then it's also the system the Crown uses, and now Principality and Baronies, to receive and process award recommendations. You do not need an AMP account to submit recommendations, but if you want to view your history of submissions, you do need an account for that. AMP will let you view, you've submitted 10 awards and you can go back and look at them, but only if you have an account, because we don't save, data for people who aren't logged in. We get this question a fair amount, so I included a slide here, is how does AMP secure my data, right? You're asking me to create an account. I want to feel secure about that. The data for AMP is stored in a secure database that Ansteorra has configured with our hosting provider. Access to the database is controlled by our Kingdom Web Minister and warranted deputies, so everyone on the AMP is appropriately warranted and tapped in by the Kingdom Web Minister. It's configured to limit users so they can only see data that is appropriate for their position. So we're not spreading personal information around willy-nilly. We try to be very, very thoughtful about who gets to see what, and only if it's appropriate for their office. And then, again, I'm not going into the details of that, but the AMP wiki, the GitHub wiki, has tons of information on the actual, how is it built, how is it run, how is it configured, so you can dive into that if you want more detail. And where do you find AMP? We already mentioned this, amp.ansteorra.org, bookmark it. AMP user guide, at the bottom of every page, there's a button that says, what is AMP? That's where you find guides. We have a Discord support chat. That is the fastest way to ask questions and report bugs to the AMP team. So if you have a Discord account and you think you might want to ask questions or provide feedback, I recommend joining the Discord. It's a good space to be in. And then slides from this class, and like I mentioned, the nobility class that I'm going to be released, that what is AMP button at the bottom is where you can find all those resources. I think this is my last, yes. Okay, so this is my last kind of information up front slide. I added this because it's a great question and I didn't want to memorize the answer. What is a warrant? Because that's what I'm talking about today, is we're using AMP to hire officers and approve warrants. So what is a warrant? We came up with a good definition that is informed by a society policy. But a warrant is a time-bound authorization of a delegation of authority to an individual generated by a great officer and the Crown. The short version, it's a person, an office that has responsibilities for a period of time. And if that gets approved by the Crown and Great Officer, that is a warrant. You are warranted for this office for this amount of time. warrants are required by society policy, and this informs information that in AMP we need in order to say, yes, you are warrantable. And that information is modern name, SCA name, mailing address, phone number, and then in AMP we also require birth month and year because we need to be able to distinguish youth accounts from adults because there's some extra rules that are involved with youth and protections. And then warranting authority is going to be the great officer and the Crown. That's both parts of the Crown. And in order to be for the AMP system to checks your account, say, are you warrantable? You basically have to have all the information required by society up to date in your user account, and then you're good to go. Most of the information on your account is set it once and forget it. But membership expiration dates is the one thing that we still have to manually update, and so periodically we'll probably be asked to send proof of membership to the AMP team so that we can update your account, because we don't yet have that automated from society. There's hope for the future. Okay, so that was a lot of information, so I'm going to pause right now. Do folks have any questions right now? Because the next part of the class, I'm going to be talking about how to use AMP as a general user and then go through local, regional, and kingdom officers. So any questions before I shift into that?
I do have a question, not necessarily about this training right now,
okay,
but where do you send your updated membership to? Because I just realized that AMP has my membership is expired.
Perfect question. There is, and I'm going to ask either Martin or JP to drop this in the chat, an email address. It's amp-secretary@webminister.ansteorra.org. It's basically a mailing group that hits all of the admins that help keep the system up to date. And so if you send a screenshot is fine of your membership number and new expiration date and the email that your AMP account is attached to, someone on the team will be able to update your account for you.
Thank you so much.
Yep. And that works for everybody. You can say, I renewed, send a screenshot, and then we'll take care of it on the back end. Name, number, expiration date in the screenshot, please. Yes, that helps us verify that it's the right account. Any other questions before I move forward? Alrighty. Boop. So these are the next few slides are going to give you examples of things that every user who has an account can do in AMP. First thing you can do is log in. The login page has a couple of things. One, you can, if you forgot your password, request a reset. You can create a new account if you don't have one. You can also, like I mentioned, you can submit award recommendations to the Crown without logging in or needing an account. But those recommendations won't be tracked in your user profile if you're not logged in. And then at the bottom of the login page and every page is a button to submit feedback. If you encounter bugs or you get like the 404 error page, you can click the submit feedback button and provide a detailed description of like what happened. If you have screenshots, that's great. And it'll send it to the team via our GitHub project so that we can investigate. Once you're logged in, you'll be able to view your personal profile. The main navigation, and these are screenshots from a web browser, because AMP does function on a mobile device, but it is not optimized for mobile devices. It's way better currently to use it on a web browser if you can. But you'll be able to look at your main navigation. Right out of the gate, you'll be able to click on your name to view your user profile, and you can submit an award recommendation. And that's all you get as a basic user. Your profile details, this is a demo test account that we have. You'll be able to view, edit, and update the details that are on your account, with the exception of your member expiration has to be verified by an admin, and then your account status and warrantability is also things that are automatically populated by the system. So the account status of verified or not reflects whether or not we've verified your membership number. And warrantability, again, it checks those lists of things required by society. As if your account has all those things up to date, then you are warrantable, which is good. I see a question in the chat. I'm going to put a pin in that and comment on that after this. Other things that you get in your AMP account is a number of tabs that let you view your current, pending, and previous marshal authorizations, Ansteorra offices held, and submitted award recommendations. There is a tab for received award recommendations that I include here. That only applies for people who will receive recommendations, like the Crown, the current territory nobility, barons and baronesses, and so if you're not in one of those roles, that tab is going to be empty. You can see the roles that you have in AMP. You can add notes to your account. These notes will be visible to you and admins, so keep that in mind. And then the additional information on your account, you can put in court preferences and add other information related to court. Also from your account, mention this, you can submit award recommendations while logged in. This is great because if you submit an award recommendation when you're logged in, you don't have to say, my SCA name is, and here's my local group, and here's my email. It'll just grab it from your account. Same thing if you're submitting a recommendation for someone who has an account, it'll also grab their information behind the scenes and send that through with the recommendation, so the Crown will have all of it. So it's pretty slick. From your account, all users can request an authorization, right? If you've been working with your local rapier marshal and you've done your authorization fights and they say, yep, we're ready to authorize you, then you would go into AMP and say request authorization. You check the marshal that you've been working with, and then they can approve it in the system, and that makes it official. You can also get an email link to a mobile authorization card. This actually generates an app for your phone that you can tap on it, and it's a dynamically updated app that shows you your mobile card. I think updates like every 10 minutes, so it's very, very up to date, which is pretty cool. You can also change your password and edit your profile details like I mentioned. So that's just general users kind of get a lot of power in AMP to edit your profile, put in some preferences, and submit recs and request authorizations. The next question is, so now I'm a local officer. What do I need to do in AMP? So local officers and their deputies can do everything that I just talked about, and you don't get any other cool permissions or navigation options because there's no one reporting to you. There's, you don't have, you're kind of at the lowest level of the reporting chain. But you will need to have an AMP account so that you can be hired officially in the system and be warranted by the Crown. And if you do have an account as an officer, AMP will let you view your current, upcoming, and previous offices held. And then the note on that is we're not backfilling it, unfortunately. So it'll start from whenever you have your account, it'll start tracking it going forward. And I see a hand, Master Martin.
Sometime next week, local officers who are their baronial or whatever head officer, not deputies, but the rapier marshal, the seneschal, will be able to create deputies. So that their deputies can be tracked as non-warranted officers.
Okay, I will make a note, and I can update these slides before I push them out so that we get that in there as well. So, yes, good important edit is that local officers and local deputy will be able to hire deputies. So for this class, when we get to the regional section, basically the things you can do in AMP will say this applies to local officers as well, and I'll make a note to update the slides. Higher. Good enough. Cool. Local officers, pretty straightforward. Regional officers, I have the note at the front. Deputies to regional officers don't gain any additional views or permissions because, as far as I know, deputies can't hire other deputies. They still have to go through the regional. And so if you're a regional deputy, currently, you don't have to worry about any extra things in AMP, but if you later become a regional officer or something else, that could change. So regional officers can do everything I already talked about. Everything from local officers, which for right now is you got to have an account. And you get new menu options. You gain a section called config, and within that, branches in your navigation. If you click on branches, it lets you view the branches that are in your region. This demo account was, I think I put them as a regional seneschal of the central region, so when they click on branches, they can see the groups in that region. If you, pardon me, if for some reason you had somebody that was like regional chronicler of the southern region and regional seneschal of central, the system would let you view both regions, but hopefully we're not double tasking our officers and we don't have to worry about that. Question in the chat, when does this go into effect? It's going to be after roundtable. We want to get through the official announcements in the State of the Kingdom, and it's going to roll out probably Monday or Tuesday, so just within a few days. Okay, so this is regional officers can hire local officers in branches they can see. They can hire deputies in kind of at the regional level. And then, like Master Martin mentioned, local officers will basically have this exact same interface, but will be limited to hiring deputies within their local group and department. Hiring officers in the region is pretty straightforward. From that branch view, there's a little magnifying glass. You can click on it. And so if I wanted to hire somebody in the barony of Bonwick, I'd click on that little magnifying glass, and I would get the option to say assign officer. So this is how you assign someone to a role, and you choose the office, the officer, and the start date. And the start date can be backdated, it can be set to the future, and the system will handle those correctly. A note about when you're trying to choose the officer, if the person you're trying to hire is not warrantable in AMP, that means if their account is not fully up to date with the information we need, you won't be able to hire them. And so it's very important that local officers, deputies, everybody, get your AMP account and get your information up to date. Because if it's not, it's just going to delay us being able to get our rosters and information all up to date. I see the question about missile disciplines. I'm going to put a pin in that for the class, and we can circle back to it. But if Martin or other folks want to answer in the chat in the meantime, please feel free. As a regional, you can also release local officers that are in branches you can see. And this is limited to branches you can see within your department. And so regional seneschal cannot release the local chronicler, but they can release the local seneschal. And release of office can happen for a number of reasons. It could be your term ended, so you get to release from office. It could be, life happened and you need to step down, or it could be maybe you got promoted to a higher position and you have to be released. And so there's a number of reasons that someone could be released from an office, and AMP requires, whenever you click that release button, it requires you to include a reason, and that is included in the notification that is sent to the person holding the office. We did have a suggestion of a feature request of adding like standard release reasons, and so that's something that we may add in the future. Okay, questions about regional officers hiring or release, and I'm going to skim the chat while we do that. Yep, so question in the chat, I'm catching myself up, was asking the question is, are the missile disciplines considered regional deputies, or are they considered like kingdom officers? Because the marshalate structure, as Martin correctly calls out in the chat, is one of the most complicated of figuring out the hierarchy of who reports to who. And so the way that we have it set up with the hierarchy in AMP is, I like this little flowchart that Martin posted. So, Earl Marshal is a supervisory over, the missile marshal, who would be supervising over target archery, combat archery, etc. And then the kind of kingdom target archery marshal would then be overseeing regionals over locals. And so we've got that hierarchy all programmed into the system. And so, and the way that we have permissions is that, for example, if you have a regional target archery marshal, they can hire and release folks basically below them in the reporting chain. And so that cascades up. And if that doesn't fully answer the question, or if it prompts more questions, feel free to throw them in the chat or raise a hand. Yes, okay.
So did you say that it is searchable now? If you wanted to know who held a particular office, you could find it in AMP?
It will be. So we are working on it's kind of like step one is we want to migrate everybody into using AMP, for hire, release, warranting. And then when we get, the data and rosters kind of all or mostly settled, we can then export that information, and specifically, because I know you're a regional web minister, so that we can say the officers page on our regional site is grabbing up-to-date information from AMP, and that's what we display. Same thing for local sites, local websites, to say here's the updated officer list, and it's pulled directly from AMP. So those are integrations that we're going to be hopefully seeing and rolling out soon.
Yay! So this is one step closer to that.
Yes. Yep.
Yay.
That's the whole thing about AMP is we're doing everything iteratively. We say we're going to do a little bit here, a little improvement here, a little change here, and it's basically moving us closer and closer to more streamlined systems and more accurate information. Yay! My slides. Okay. So Kingdom officers. Same general note. In general, deputies to kingdom officers don't gain any additional views or permissions. There is a caveat to that with our martial disciplines, since like we were saying, the kingdom target archery deputy does have is part of the upline reporting chain, and so they will gain hire and release permissions. But other deputies, for example, I know that Ministry of Arts and Sciences, there's lots of cultural specialty deputies, things like that. No extra hire or release permissions coming from AMP for them. So kingdom officers can do everything I already talked about. And they get an additional thing, which is kingdom officers, right? They're one of the warranting authorities, the signing authorities on warrants. And so if you are a kingdom officer now, or if you become one in the future, your AMP, once you're hired into your position in AMP, you gain some extra permissions. And that is the ability to generate and view your current departmental roster. And you get a navigation option for that in the menu. You also get options to view and submit warrants to the Crown for signing. I see a question from Zubaida.
How does AMP handle offices such as, for example, server administrator or wiki administrator or kingdom historian that don't have a specific expiration to them? You're in the office as long as you're willing to hold the office. Mine is showing that both of my two jobs are no longer active, for example.
Yeah, so by default in AMP, all offices, with the one exception, have a kind of pre-coded in term limit, and it defaults to 2 years. And that is how almost all the offices are coded in, and so that's why you're seeing that yours is saying, nope, you've reached the end of your term, because that was the default for it. The landed nobility positions, I think, are one of the only ones that we have in the system that explicitly says, and this has no end date, because by default in Ansteorra, offices after 2 years of term, I believe, are supposed to be renewed, and if you're staying in it, you can get rehired, and so that's where how it's set up currently. For specific positions like historian or the wiki editor, we can basically make changes in the system to reflect how it's actually done. And that's just a matter of, for the positions that you're talking about, send information to AMP, and especially for if it's a deputy position, CC the upline so that the developers can understand how do you expect it to be working, and we can compare it against what it's doing now and then make updates.
And to amplify on that, so all officers, especially if they have a official Ansteorra.org address, must have a warrant because they are reflecting the authority of the kingdom and the crown. So they have to be renewed at a periodic time, and they have default expirations. So yeah. There really are no permanent offices, and any office that the crown wanted to vacate afterwards could be vacated. So the situation you're describing is not 100% correct.
Okay. I'm thinking of like server admin. The same person has been server admin for.
Oh, we don't. We've talked about it.
Okay.
It's like she should take a break.
So yeah, I'm gonna chime in there. A couple of things. One is super easy for the greater officers to just rehire.
Yep.
It's 10 seconds in, 20 seconds in the app for them to rehire once every 2 years. And two, it gives people a reminder that some of us are doing jobs. I've been the Marshal at Web Secretary for almost a decade, as an example, and I expect that somebody should go in and click rehire once every 2 years to remember that I'm doing that job after a decade, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's harmful to remind people to go make sure people aren't burning out.
Yeah.
So is it an action that I need to be taking to renew, or is it my
You
upline?
might go needle Asa, because wiki and specifically, and say, hey, go rehire me.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the hiring needs to be done by your upline.
Okay.
And so, and then if you or your upline need any support getting that done, that AMP secretary email, if you loop us in, basically that'll get the team there if you need any extra help with that.
Okie doke.
Cool. All right, another hand from Carl. Sorry, JP, you had a hand up.
Yeah, I don't. My bad. And it's got my SE name on there too.
Oh, sorry, it's truncated on my screen, so I didn't see it. Okay, so continuing forward. So as a kingdom officer, you get the ability to generate rosters and view warrants. And so viewing the roster for your department is pretty easy. You click, you'll have little toggle buttons for any departments that you oversee. Ideally, we won't have someone serving as 2 grade officers at the same time, but it's technically possible in the system. And so you can say, I guess I want to see arts and sciences. You can say hide anybody whose warrant is expired, or and you can choose the time frame for the warrant that you want to view, and you click submit, and it'll give you a table. So that's very easy. You can view warrants that are active, upcoming, and pending. Upcoming and pending are the same thing. That's a double. That might be a bug. I just noticed that.
They're different. Upcoming is approved, but in a future date.
Okay.
Pending is not approved by the Crown yet.
Ah, okay, that's good clarification to have. And then previous warrants that have been submitted and approved within your department. Creating the roster for warranting is what this does in AMP is you choose the warranting period, right? Because a warrant is a person in a job for a time frame, and so all of our warrants have time frames attached to them. By default, it goes from roundtable to roundtable, so it's about every 6 months is the time frame. You choose the department that you're generating your roster for. By default, it'll just be the one that you oversee as a grade officer, and you click show. This allows you to review the list of folks that you want to say to the Crown, these are all the people that in my department that need to be warranted. And so you can review that list. There's toggle options to kind of skip folks, if somebody, that their term is, ending a day before roundtable, they don't need to be included in the next warranting cycle, things like that. And so you generate your roster, review it, and then there's a big blue button that says submit, and that sends it to the Crown. And from the Crown's point of view, in their AMP menu, they then get a little action item that says there's a roster that needs your review and approval. And once they approve, the warrants are done. And whenever warrants are approved, every individual included on that roster will get a notification. Many folks have gotten emails this week because we've been updating the system to include our current officers. And so there's been a lot of folks who've, been in a job for a year and a half that got an email yesterday that said, congratulations, you were hired a year and a half ago. And congratulations, you were warranted. And as we get things in the system, what will happen is about every 6 months, folks will get an email saying your warrant was renewed. And then that'll just become very routine. Okay, so that's it for new permissions. It's hiring and release. If you're in a position that has the authority to hire and release people below you. So that's our local officers will be able to hire deputies in their local group within their department. Our regional officers, same thing, but across the region. And then grade officers, same thing, but across the kingdom. And then the extra thing for grade officers is that generating your rosters and then submitting warrants to the Crown for signing. Summary slides. I'm going to skim this, make sure I didn't skip anything. Yes, and so I mentioned that warranting periods will basically run from roundtable to roundtable, so about every 6 months. And so you very much will have the situation where if I'm serving in an office that is a 2-year long term, I will likely be warranted 4 times or more if it's kind of capped and caught on the end. And so you'll be warranted for multiple spans of time within your term of office, and so that's very it's going to be the routine. So at this point, I have reached the end of my slides. I'm going to show in the slide deck, there's an extra couple of pages that's like, here's the step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to hire someone in AMP, and it's the walkthrough. There's another one for releasing an officer, viewing a roster, and then generating a warrant roster. This is in here as a reference for folks to view later. I'm not going to dig through these right now, but they're included. So now it's time for questions and discussion if folks want to do it, because that's the end of my content. Baroness of Elsie, yes.
So my question is more in regards to award recommendations and not the hiring process.
Okay, I'll try to answer.
I know once we submit an award recommendation into AMP, it stays in AMP and it's there forever and ever, amen.
Mm-hmm.
Which is awesome because then Crowns can go back and look at previous award recommendations. The question I have though is how do we go about, there doesn't seem to be a way right now in AMP to, like if I submitted one during a previous reign, that person wasn't awarded, the calendar changes, events change. Is there a way, or will there become a way to be able to basically
like
notify what the events that they're going to be attending and stuff?
So there's not currently. When you submit a recommendation, you have the option to say, hey, here's some suggested events where this person will be. And once those events have passed, right, then it's up to the Crown or whoever's approving the award recommendations to do their due diligence of saying, I want to give this award to this person. Ideally, let's schedule it for an event where they're likely to be at. There is a way on your personal profile to toggle events that you plan to attend. And for right now, that's probably the best way to communicate to the Crown what events you will be at. Because that data is shared with them when they're viewing the award recommendation to say, I recommended, so-and-so for an award, and the Crown will be able to see what that person has elected on their profile as things that they're planning to attend. And so right now, that's the mechanism that we have for communicating that as time moves forward. I don't think we have a to-do to allow, or to make it so that submitters, that's a better word, can continue to update recommended events. I think what we're going to try and push folks to do is keep your personal profile up to date, because that'll be the most direct source of kind of event plans. Cool. Next, our youth rapier marshal has a hand up. What's your question?
Hey, I'm super excited about this idea of having a roster and being able to see all of the youth marshals. What I'm wondering is, when this feature goes live, am I going to find that all that data is populated, or do we have to track these people down and get them to let me know, or I have to hire them all?
Especially for our marshals, all of that data is already in AMP. That's our current marshal system, and the marshal secretary is really good about keeping all of that up to date. So for marshals, you should be good to go. We are working on populating the information about officers, like youth officers and things like that. And so there may be some amount of, you got to, poke your people, make them create an account so that you can then hire them in the system. And so there is going to be some ongoing data entry happening.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Next is Zubeda.
Hey there. 2 quick questions. Number 1, can you show where in AMP people can mark what events they're going to? Because
Yeah.
I can't find it. And number 2, is there a way to display whether or not in AMP, whether or not the Crown granted the award that you recommended them for? I assume that's somewhere in the back office that the Crown can see, so that the Crown knows, oh yes, this was acted on.
Yeah, that is a feature that we discussed actually a fair amount during the development, and ultimately the current decision that we're sticking with is, if you submitted someone for an award recommendation, you will not get a notification that the Crown has given the award or has decided to, and that is kind of where we landed. And that's a matter of, we don't want to spoil the surprise. It's letting the Crown decide, when and where to make announcements and how to inform people. And so for now, if you've submitted, you won't know the status of them unless you check the OP, and then you can see, what's been given through that path.
That was where I was going with that, is once it's in the OP, could the AMP record be updated to be flagged as award given?
So the OP is a different system.
It is a different system.
We don't currently share data between the OP and AMP. We have links so people can see what's in the OP, but we don't actually share data currently. I mean, that could change.
Also, so there are a couple things that might be mindful of. There are often more than one award recommendation that comes in. There are often multiple award recommendations that are combined and turned into a single award. There's a lot of what you're asking for sounds, could be changed something else. So there's a lot of what seems to be a simple thing that is not. And those award recommendations get turned into a single award actual issuance, I guess you could call it, that then is a DIAX or reports. And so there's no really good feasible way to do it without putting a bunch of additional work upon the Crown, who already has a lot of work.
Okay.
Wow.
Sorry, just as someone who's done it several times, it's a lot of work already processing the awards and doing them, getting them out to your Sable to get them on the scrolls, everything else like that, and all the insignia and all that kind of stuff. Taking that, and even Martin and I have talked a bit more about taking all the various award recognitions we'll get, combining them into a single award issuance, and then recording that on the back end. Like, that's still a lot of work that has to be done. Right now, if you get good award recognitions, you might be getting 3 to 4 recs per person that you then have to manually select, change issue, do the spreadsheets, and there's a lot of back end work that happens for the Crown. And while it seems like an easy thing to say, let it be seen, it's not actually would be not a true reflection of what may or may not have happened. And in order not to put wrong information out there, it's better just not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And I see folks in the chat, and you also asked about this, about the toggling what events we will be at. I was wrong. That's not something currently viewable on profiles, and so it's something that we will have to look at for a future update. By the team. I was wrong about that. I think I imagined it so hard I thought it was real.
It's definitely something on, I would say, in developer terms, it's on our backlog, but we haven't actually scheduled it into the roadmap. So we don't know when we'll do it because we've got some really big, like, cornerstone things we still need to finish, like reporting.
Yep. Yeah, and so that's another thing too, is AMP is absolutely being developed like iteratively, and we review, what's the priority for what we work on next, and so that is a feature that will make it to the top, but it's not currently in there. So I apologize for the confusion on that one, for the intended events. Let's see. I see Youth Rapier Marshal has a hand. Is that left over, or is this a new question?
That's left over, sorry.
All right. No, it's fine. I'll put it down. Vinheim Missile Marshal. And then real quick, notes in the chat are visible to you and administrators. And then Martin, are notes visible to the Crown? I believe they are.
Notes are visible to the Crown if they look at the member. The member can see their own notes. And then there's also the concept of private notes, which can only be seen by admins.
Okay,
it's
so
like not even members can see. Those are for, like, if the Seneschal needs to record scary things, they go into private notes.
So sorry about that. Interrupting there. Our Vinheim Missile Marshal, go ahead.
No worries. With the regional and the reporting structure situation for officer roles in AMP, all of the Principality Marshal officers, there's only 3 of us, we report directly to Kingdom Earl.
So I'm going to get with Kingdom Earl, and we're going to get what their structure they believe is, because I've heard from I've set the structure up for everybody, and Rapier and Heavy and the other kind of routes have not had an issue. So I'm not saying you're not wrong. You could be 100% right, but that hasn't been communicated to us, and Skeggy owns the hierarchy of the martial community. So I have to hear from Skeggy if we're going to change anything.
Absolutely, and that's totally understandable. So like if it's left as is, and Gunnar is reporting to Cormac, and similar for our Rapier Marshals, that's not that big of a deal. That's just one more person that receives their reports. That would put me reporting to 5, 6 different offices, and that's
no,
kind of a lot
would
to keep
report
track
to
of.
Rabbit. You would report to Rabbit as Vinheim Missile.
So the way your flow chart was set up in the messages was that each regional replies directly to, or reports, directly to the discipline specific deputy.
Right, but that, again, hierarchies are complicated in Marshallate, right? So so if you're the target regional, then you would go through target kingdom, but if you're the all up missile, then you would go straight to Rabbit because you're the all up missile.
Okay. Currently, my AMP shows me as the regional target archery marshal, which is not 100% accurate. But I am at large for everything else. I have the authorizations that I need to do my job, which is obviously the most important part. But for future officers, future AMP, just discussing it.
Yeah, so we just need to get with Skiggy and have him properly define how this all works, and then we'll have to rejigger things in the configuration. If rejiggering
which is valid. Yeah. I know that no asks, no questions, no requests for any features is easy. You guys are programming a whole new thing that we're doing. Like, it's kind of a circus. I don't know anything about programming. Definitely just throwing it out there, not being demanding or rude.
No, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing. Requests drive features, and if we don't know if there's a problem, then we're unlikely to fix it by accident. So getting questions, getting feedback, and even getting the this isn't behaving the way I had expected to. Was that intentional? Is also very, very useful, because even if it's not something that's we'll change that today, it could be something that we keep in mind and then adjust into AMP in the future, because AMP is very configurable. It's nice.
You guys are doing excellent work. Thank you very much for all of your help.
Yeah. All right. So our next question, I have Rapier Marshal. I apologize. Not sure which a group or region you're
Darren.
attached
I'm
to?
Kingdom Rapier Marshal.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, what's your question?
I just had a quick question because I've got a feature that doesn't seem to be working anymore.
Okay.
People being able to request becoming an authorizing marshal directly to me through AMP. That seems to have gone away. Is that something you guys have pulled off and that's normal, or is it an
Let me, real quick, Martin.
Yeah.
The most common problem that we see if people can't submit like requests to you for authorization, first thing to sanity check is make sure that your membership expiration is up to date, because if your membership expires, that's the most common thing that'll pull you off the list for somebody who can authorize. So that's the first sanity check, and then Martin, I'll toss it over to you to answer.
Yeah, so the actual ask is, can he create authorizing marshals through a request? And what we learned through all of our analysis of what it means to be warranted is that every authorizing marshal is a warranted officer according to the SCA. It's not actually an authorization we're granting people, it's actually an officer position we're giving them. And so subsequently it is managed through the officer hierarchy. So there isn't a button they can click to say, can you make me an authorizing marshal? Because it's not an authorization. They need to come to you and ask, and you need to decide, do I want to make this person an officer of the kingdom? And so that's why there's not an easy button for them to click like an authorization anymore, because it's hiring an officer now. And so it sounds weird, but it was one of those things where when we did all this analysis on what it means to be warranted, we went, oh, poop. These are not all. It was a really big data change we had to make back in January to move these people into officer positions, because technically that's what they are. They're officers.
Okay, so when somebody comes to me and asks to be an authorizing marshal, I do it the way we did it before AMP then and go through the marshalate secretary to get them included into it?
You will have the power personally, once we deploy the regional support, to hire your at-larges. That is something currently Skeggy can do, or the marshalate secretary can do. But then once we deploy this regional hierarchy stuff, it's still, let me phrase that. Once we configure it, it's deployed, but we haven't configured it. Once we deploy it, then you will be able to hire your authorizing marshals.
Okay, fantastic. That answers the question. Thank you, guys.
Cool. So we have just a couple of minutes left in the class. I see a hand from our Kingdom Chronicler. What is your question?
I have a chronicler who is 17. She was appointed like mid of last year, before AMP was in place. So she can get warranted according to the rules, but she needs parental permission, which I assume was gotten at the time. But does her parent need to like send an email to the AMP secretary at the same time to say that he approves this, or what?
So how we handled that last red tape,
because we had a similar situation.
We made them a deputy of the seneschal, so that their service would be tracked. But we kind of they're running under the auspice of the seneschal's warrant. We don't really have a way for underage people to get a warrant currently. That's a really complicated set of edge case, and the workaround, at least back in January, and to be fair, we haven't addressed it since then, was a deputy does not have to be warrantable, and you can kind of make anybody a deputy. And so they're currently, their office is being tracked as a deputy of their local seneschal.
Yep. And that one, it has a note in there that says they're serving as, I forget what their actual role was, but we had the ability to add that as a note. For your specific scenario, I would send basically like a little summary blurb to the AMP secretary team, and then we can basically sort it out offline to do a similar workaround for you for your underage chronicler.
Okay, I'll send it off.
Cool. All right. I see a hand from our Kingdom Rapier Marshal. Is that new or is that leftover?
That was leftover. I apologize.
All right, cool. So we have a couple of minutes left, but I'm gonna take the initiative to call us ending about 2 minutes early, because I'm gonna hop over and help to get the stream started for our State of the Kingdom.
I'm going to throw out that we're always looking for more volunteers.
Oh, yes.
So if you're like, this is cool and I want to help, feel free to reach out. If you happen to know how to code, even better. And if you don't, there's other ways you can help.
Yep. So I'm going to step out of this meeting. If folks want to hang around and chat for a little bit, you can. But I am going to bounce and get ready for the State of the Kingdom. Thank you all so much for joining. And look forward to the recording and the slides.